Hello, you beautiful, beautiful people. Today is going to be something really, really interesting. I love GTA 5. I'm even more hyped for GTA 6. And yesterday, or the other day, I made a video talking about something I'm about to play for you, which is some GTA 5 mods to basically get me hyped for GTA 6. It was a massive overhaul graphics mod that I thought was really good. Now, there was a lot of... I'm going to actually start this. Here we go. I actually thought the difference was insane, but there was a few comments saying the difference wasn't all that impressive. So today I've spent the day collecting clips, and what we're going to see is side by side. We're going to have some scrolling effects, and I'm basically going to walk through and talk you through this whole entire graphics mod, and also a little bit of my hype for GTA 6. I know some of you don't like it and get triggered when I talk about GTA 6 when it's not coming out yet. But this mod is really impressive, and it does get me excited for it. So, shoot me. Anyway, so this is a little intro clip. We're going to go through and flip between this clip in a little bit. But this was probably one of my most favorite clips throughout all of it. Actually, there was another one that I really like, but that's later on. And this looks just absolutely insane. I'll link to all the information, by the way, down below if you want to install it yourself. There is a bit of a performance hit which we'll talk about, but for the most part it's pretty damn impressive. So this is down at the pier, so we've got mods off on the right, and on the left I'm kind of scrolling the mod on and off. And this is really helpful for me because even when I was playing, I started to echo what you guys were saying. I was like, maybe there isn't much of a change. But when you scroll through like this and later on have it side by side, you can definitely tell the difference. So things that are different, the sharpness, the contrast, and mainly the sky and render distance. Or not render difference, but distance. The look of things in the distance is kind of different. Overall, I would say that there was a massive contrast difference. In fact, let me just remove my face. There we go. So here's my two first clips put side by side, and initially I think it's fair to say you might not notice a difference until you start looking for the details. So there's a couple of differences. Number one, the contrast on the mods side, the left side, is a lot more amplified, and there's a lot more detail in buildings in the distance. So look at the Maze Bank building right now. You can really see the vanilla version of GTA 5 is a lot more flat as an image, and even more so when you look at the distance. I think that is a fog trickery thing to make the game look better because you can't see it, you can't see the holes, but obviously this mod kind of enriches those things and lets you see further, and I think it makes a massive difference. If you're a video nerd or you're into filming, I would say that this is like a comparison of a Sony camera to a Canon camera. Like, the contrast mod version is like a cool Sony camera, and then it's like a Canon on the right. It's not better or worse, it's just kind of a stylistic choice, and I prefer the contrast personally. This is Mount Chiliad, and this was probably the most difficult section for this mod to do because there's not a lot here. We've got the sky and we've got the ground, and there's no new textures. There's some texture remapping which you saw on the pier. We might have to rewind that later, but which you may or may not have missed. But here you can see the color tone of the rocks and Michael, the trees, and just the sky in general. There's no clouds in this mod, but I think that's my fault because I tweaked the time and the clouds and stuff. I should also mention that all these comparisons are done at the same time of day, apart from one clip which I did on purpose. But yeah, it's got a much more filmic look. It looks really juicy, and I love it. I think it's really cool. And also, it does go to show that you don't need to change the game that much to get more out of it, you know? So that's kind of a cool thing as well, I suppose. Now, this is probably one of my most favorite looks out of all of it. It's very rich, contrasty, the yellow, the dark kind of slight blue tint to the tarmac. It looks really nice. But going over here to the lumber factory, whatever, the end of the game section, I like to call it. It's really actually quite hard to tell the difference. But if you look at the sky, that's darker. And I would argue the colour of the green car is a lot brighter compared to the yellow. Now, I don't know if that's the colour itself or just the fact that the shading works a bit differently, but it was the same time of day, give or take a few minutes. It's actually quite interesting. We actually get the same animal run out on us at that point, which is kind of cool. But yeah, just an interesting. This is probably the most difficult to tell the difference. Here we have a blimp. So this is a skyline view of the city. I started off in the morning here because it looked really, really good. I think actually this mod does better at like 8 o'clock in the morning. If you do it to noon, it's actually a little bit more difficult to tell the difference. But as we're flying here, you can see I'm going to start moving down to get some filter. And this is a really good example of how the sky changes and how the buildings look close up as well. So if you look at the bottom, it looks a lot clearer, and at the top it almost looks smeary. I don't know if that's on purpose or it's just to kind of blur it a little bit so you're focused more on the content closer to you. It's called depth of field, but it kind of looks smeary. But when you swipe it back and turn the mods back on, you can really get an idea and see clearly what's going on beneath you. So that's kind of an interesting thing here. Also, I will say, it definitely throughout the entire video clips here looks darker and looks more contrasty. Now this was a really, really nice one. So we've got 2 aeroplanes going over the city at night, and this was a really impressive one. When I was doing it with the mods off, which I did first, I thought, ooh, maybe there's not going to be much of a difference here. But as soon as I booted up with the mods on, re-recorded doing the similar thing, you could really tell the difference in the lights. Interestingly, there's no stars in the sky, which I am kind of sad about, but I guess it's a more realistic look because of all the light pollution. I don't know, but I just really, really favor the light of the mod version. It looks really, really nice, and there's some really nice light reflections, which we're going to have a look at now. This was some really cool things, and it got me actually excited for Cyberpunk when that game comes out, because it's going to be a lot of neon lighting and things like that. But you'll see what I mean in a second. So flying through the buildings here, look at the reflections on the windows, look at the reflections. It's almost a little bit too much maybe, but it looks like I'm flying past crystals, for goodness sake. It looks pretty cool, and that little post there looked quite nice, so that was cool. This was another fun scene which was interesting to do more than once. Yeah, it was more to walk off the bridge, but this was kind of a fun thing just to see how the train looked, and it kind of looks identical, and that is probably because none of the textures are different. But this was a good example here. So you can see in the distance more of the scene. Michael looks out, so if you look on the far mountain, it's very apparent that the mod kind of highlights further, and you can see more, and it's less of a focus effect. But yes, this is just proof that you can't dive off the waterfall and survive, which is a shame. But yeah, anyway, it needs to be done. Michael, do the honors, please. So yeah, this is that clip we showed you at the start of the video, but the contrast, like when I flip between, you're going to be really surprised. So here we go. Switch now, please. There we go. So look at the difference. I know you guys said there's not much of a difference, and there's definitely areas where there is not much of a difference, but here there's like a freaking Monte Carlo vibe, like very bright, colorful, atmospheric thing underwater. Look at this. It's kind of insane. So it's definitely really impressive stuff. Now, I mentioned before there was a performance hit to this mod, and there's about a 30 to 40% performance hit, frames per second I'm talking about. And whether or not that's worth it to you, or whether or not you've even got the horsepower to do that, I don't know. I don't think I would play all the time with this mod on, but it is really nice to showcase, and it is really nice to kind of get screenshots. I think this entire mod is like perfect for doing trailers, gameplay clips, and screenshots, because it just looks so photorealistic. But as soon as you start playing the game, you start to kind of forget what it looked like originally, but this kind of switching I keep doing here is a really good reminder of the difference in the game. But yeah, when you're just playing it, you kind of forget. And like you guys, yesterday or the other day, I was kind of thinking to myself, I don't actually know if there's that much of a difference, but it's kind of nice to see that there is. Right, so this next clip, I was going to leave it up to be a mystery, but I think I'm just going to tell you what it is, because it's a little bit difficult, but here are the differences. So there's kind of a more of illumination from the moon, it seems like. Also, there's a lot less of an orange-yellow hue from the streetlights, and I much prefer the mod version. I don't think there's actually any clips where I'm like, I prefer the real version. But the reflections on the car, the brake lights especially are a lot brighter. Notice that as well. And overall, it just feels more real and looks a bit more accurate, I'd say, to real life. Not to say that without the mods it looks bad, but it definitely gets enhanced with the mods on. Alright, so this was a really nice moment here. So you can really see, when I mentioned the early morning is where this mod shines. Look at this. You can really, when I put it to the morning here. Oh, that's the evening. Oh, looks good. Just looks really atmospheric. But basically anywhere, either in the morning or in the evening, as the sun's setting or rising, you really get a feel of the light shafts and the light rays and stuff. God rays, depending on what platform you're on. And it really makes a difference to how, like, the feel of the game. But at noon, this is at noon here, the difference is actually kind of difficult to tell. There's no real texture difference. There's a little bit of a difference looking at the city and stuff, but running around the grass or basically anywhere outside is actually kind of hard to tell other than the sky. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting to point out. There wasn't too much of a difference in some respects. But this is near Michael's house with Michael's car, and I thought I'd just let this play out a little bit because the contrast, the colors, there's actually still water on the floor. I changed it from rain to extra sunny in the mod settings for the weather, and yeah, it looks, I think, incredible. But I'd be really interested actually to hear what you guys say, because I know a lot, or some of you, I say a lot, it was only a few people, said there wasn't much difference. So after watching this, what do you think of the difference? Do you think it's worth the performance hit? And does this get you excited for Rockstar to be working on the next GTA, where they've got more time and more opportunities with the hardware they're using and building for, to build something that looks a little bit better? I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think. But I certainly am excited. After reviewing this footage, I definitely think there is a massive difference to the gameplay, but there are some areas where it's actually quite hard to tell. But I think it's the subtle changes that make it realistic and just really enhanced. I think it's really good. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, guys, please drop a like, subscribe, I really appreciate it. And if you want to go watch my previous video where I check out some more locations, there is a car annotation to that. And yeah, I encourage you to check out my previous video if you haven't already. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.